Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Hello, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Maseches NIDAH Daf Chav Ches. We begin 12 lines from the top of the Amud at the Tanu Rabban. We learned in a brayso, Pelas, a woman discharges a yad chatucha, something which has a hand-like look to it, and it's chatucha with finger-like configurations. Virgil chatucha, likewise, a leg, which is configured with the details of a leg. Imoit me'eleda, the mother is tamei leda. We assume that this properly formed limb originated from a properly formed fetus, which somehow came apart and came out without her noticing. And we're not going to speculate that, no, it's coming from some sort of undeveloped, incomplete entity which has no status. Shema, perhaps, miguf otumbo, came from this blocked entity, this incompletely formed entity. Because most women carry a properly developed fetus which has status. However, Rav Chizda, Rav Huna, the Amrit HaVayah, they both added, you still can't grant her days of tahara, which typically comes along with a birth, which triggers Yimei Tumah, followed by Yimei Tahara, and even when there's Dam, she's considered Tahar. We don't give her that privilege, so to speak. You know why? Because although we are assuming that there was a blood, and she's a Yoledis, but we'll never know when it happened. Perhaps the main element of this entity had already been discharged weeks ago. And by now, the Yimei Tahara have already depleted. Because at most, if it's in a keva, she has 80 days to work with. Perhaps it's past 80 days. My time, because perhaps the birth took place a long time ago. So even if we will assume that it was a vlad, let's say it was a zachar, okay, at the least, which has a shorter Yimei Tahara, perhaps it's past 40 days. Maser Rav Yosef, we have a Mishnah where she is granted the full count, Yimei Tumah, followed by Yimei Tahara, and the question is why? If we don't know when it occurred, perhaps it's over by now. Maser Rav Yosef Pelas, she miscarries, Ven Yadua, my appeal, we're not sure what it was. Was it a zachar? Was it an akeva? The Mishnah says she has to account for all possibilities, right? Teisha lezachar, an akeva, she has to go through both counts. So basically, she's machmer. She has the longer, the 2-week Yimei Tumah like an akeva, and the shorter Yimei Tahara, which ends at day 40 of the zachar. Question: why at all give her Yimei Tahara? Perhaps it took place a long time ago, and the Gemara is assuming that we're speaking even about this type of case where she just discovered this yad, and maybe the main part came out a while ago. In which case it's over. If you're going to tell me this type of situation, we can speculate that perhaps it's been a while since the actual birth. Listen, let the Mishnah sort of discount any Yimei Tahara and just say, well, she has to consider herself like a NIDAH. Maybe it was a zachar, maybe it was an akeva, maybe it was really a NIDAH, which means to say that perhaps this made her a NIDAH, and she will not have any Yimei Tahara, because even if it was a birth, perhaps it was a long time ago. Amar Abaye, you're right, but there's a reason why the Mishnah did not stipulate it clearly. If the Mishnah would have said it out, I would think maybe a korban b'nei that NIDAH indicates that we're not even sure there was a leda. In which case she has to bring a korban leda, but the kohen can't eat it, just in case it's not really valid, not really necessary. Therefore the Mishnah says she observes zachar nekeva counts as though she gave birth, because in fact we assume she gave birth. And she's obligated to bring a korban, which will be processed and eaten by the kohanim. However, certainly because of this timing question, practically she can't observe Yimei Tahara. But the Mishnah didn't want to make mention of it, to avoid confusion. Amar Rav Huna. What if we have an uber in there, and his hand came out and went back in? Does that constitute birth or not? We know that if a head comes out, the head is the king of all the limbs, and of course that constitutes birth. But what about his hand? Hand came out and went back in. That triggers too much. We have a pasuk by the birth of Yehuda's sons. As she was birthing, he stuck out his hand. So we see that exiting of the hand qualifies as Leda. Masav Rabbi Yehuda, Avakasha, he says. Brisa says, the hand comes out, the mother has nothing to worry about. Amar Nachman. Here's your answer. It was explained to me by Rav Huna. The Brisa means like this. Sorry, it was explained to me about Rav Huna's statement. That when Rav Huna says that the hand constitutes Leda, he meant lochosh chesheshes. Concerns, that it raises. Which means to say that she has to start counting Yimei Tumah. But Yimei Toyar, lo yavinula. But she can't move on to Yimei Toyar as though it was a proper birth. Adonafek Rubi, until the fetus comes out, the majority of it comes out, which constitutes a Leda. So, in a way, we're being strict. That as soon as the hand comes out, it triggers the Yimei Tumah, but not Yimei Tahara. That only happens when it's actually born. And you have to reckon your account based on the moment when the hand came out. That's when it starts the whole count. Ask the Gemara, but the Brisa clearly says there's no concern at all. Amar Abaye, min ha-Torah. Einay chesheshes l'chol davar midaraisa. Min ha-Torah doesn't qualify as a Leda. Avu midarabbanan, cheshes midarabbanan. It might get confused with the head, so we say, look, a hand is something of significance. It comes out, you have to start counting. Chesheshes. V'hakra ka'amar. How could you say it's only midarabbanan? We have a pasuk. The truth is, it's only midrabanan. Ukra, and the pasuk that we cited is just a hint. Asmachta ba'alma. First, we'll explain. The Ritva and Shon of Tazayin offers a beautiful explanation. Whenever we have this expression that it's cross machta ba'alma, he says what it means is that the Torah willed it so, but didn't articulate it. It wasn't meant to be a din Torah. It was meant to be developed and presented, introduced by the Chachamim in the later generations. That's why Hashem willed it. He wanted it to be done by the Chachamim. And that's why it was just slightly hinted in the Torah. Yes, this is the will of Hashem, to be eventually presented by the Chachamim. Continues the mission. Ha'apelos tumtum adregnus. Okay, so she gives birth. So even though it says mapelas, which typically refers to an unsuccessful miscarriage, but here it refers either way to a miscarriage or even a live birth. But gender is unknown. Child is a tumtum, whose gender signs are covered up. So it's uncertain as to whether this fellow is a zachar or a nekeva, or vadreganus, which is a mixed gender. Both sides. So in this case, what kind of track does she have? Does she follow the zachar account, with the shorter, 7-day tumah followed by 33-day tahara, or does she count nekeva, which is much longer, 2 weeks of tumah, all the way to 80, me tahara? Teishav l'zachar nekeva, she has to observe both, which means to say that she has to take the shorter me tahara and the longer me tumah, because his gender is unknown. What if it's a tumtum with vizachar, or androkinus, who's a twin together with another vizachar? Likewise, Teshav Zachar Nekeva, she has to observe both counts. What if it's a Tumtum and Vinekeva, or Adreganus and Vinekeva? Teshav Nekeva Vad. In this case, she will only observe the Nekeva count, because in this case, she's certainly entitled to the longer count. And even if the accompanying entity was a Zachar, but it's sort of enveloped, it's absorbed in the much longer count. So there's no reason to reckon for it separately. Continues the Mishnah. Let's say the baby came out mechutach, chopped up in pieces. Lo yaleinu. Oy mesuras, or abnormally, meaning feet first instead of head first. Shiyotza rubai. At what point does it constitute birth? When most of it came out. Shiyotza rubai, right? We know throughout the Torah. Rubai kikulai. Harayu kiyot. Yotza kedarka. If it comes out conventionally, head first. In this case, you don't have to wait to 51%. Achi it's a revelation until his head, or most of his head, comes out. What qualifies as most? He's for it. Asks the Gemara the obvious question on the Mishnah. Mishnah began. If it's just a tumtum, we're not sure. Zachar and Nekeva have to account for both. So what does Mishnah have to continue and say? Tumtum accompanied by a Zachar, we do the same. Well, obviously, he already did that by the tumtum himself, without an accompaniment. Look, even in the case of tumtum on its own l'chudei, on its own l'chudei, Amar Mishnah says, she has to account for both possibilities. Teishav l'zachar nekeva. So why go on to the next case? Tumtum together with v'zachar. Or androgynous v'zach mibaya. Of course, it goes without. Obviously, the same thing will happen. Istrich, the answer is like this. I don't think it's different. Since the accompanying twin is a confirmed zachar, maybe that's indicative of what's happening on the other entity. Because chances are they both went through the same process, triggered by the same conception. And if this was a zachar, we assume probably the other one as well. While the Talmud, there's room to think. Yitzchak tells us that the biological process works as follows: Isha mazaras tchila, if the woman expresses herself hormonally first, hilad is zachar, turns out to be a zachar. If it's on the man's side first, it's going to be a nekeva. Ish mazaras tchila, hilad is nekeva. So in our case, where we discover a zachar there, let's assume the same process would have created a zachar alongside him. Ema, let's say, the high zachar, once this is a confirmed zachar, hainam zachar, the other one as well. Kamashma, the point is no. There's a third option. Ema, shnei mezru basach, they both express themselves simultaneously, the husband and wife, and therefore, it can go either way. You can have one-on-one. Zu zachar, zenekev. Amar Rav Nach. Amar Rav. Here comes an interesting halacha. Tumtum v'androgynous. So you have one of these undefined, gender entities. Sharo loiven oyoidim. So they experience loiven, a whitish emission, which Rashi says means like a keri, right, which typically relates to a man. Oyoidim, or a reddish expression, the dam of a NIDAH of a woman. Ein chayav al abiyas migdash. They go into the migdash. They're not chayiv. Why? Because who says I'm a man? Who says I'm a woman? Right? Because the loiven is only an issue by a man. Maybe she's a woman. The dam is only an issue by a woman. Maybe she's a man. He's a man. Likewise, if the tumtum had dam and he touched teruma, you're not going to burn it because maybe he's not really tummy. Now comes a big chiddush. Let's say the tumtum experienced both, loiven and oidim. So you would think he's covered. Either way, he's tamei. Ro loiven ve'oidim ke'echad. The chiddush is ein chayaven al bias migdash. They go into the migdash, they're not chayav a carbon. Some say it's even mutal chatchila. We'll see why. Aval surfin alim truma, but certainly the fellow is tamei. Either way, he's tamei. If he touches truma, you got to burn it. Shenamar. Why is he exempt from entering the migdash in this state? We turn to the base. The pasuk instructs us to send away a zachar who's tamei and a keva who's tamei. And we learn from here, it needs to be a confirmed zachar who's experiencing this personally generated tumah. Likewise, in a keva. If there's some element of uncertainty as to his status, as to what's triggering the tumah, he's exempt from this halacha. Zachar vadai. It confirms Zachar. As opposed to these undefined entities. And that's Rav's chiddush. So regarding generally classifying them as tamei, of course they're tamei. They had both together. And therefore if they touch truma is tamei. But regarding bias migdash, there's a special stipulation. When we speak about personally generated tumas, not speaking about him touching a mace, of course he's tamei, he can't enter. But we're talking about personal tumas, emission related tumas. There it has to be defined and confirmed. Perhaps we can support this halach from a brayso. Tumtum adregna, shiro loiven oidim. Ein chayav al bias migdash, vein tzaref al truma. So if the tumtum saw one or the other, certainly that's a suffix. Doesn't know whether he's tamid. There's no liability for entering the mikdash, nor will it affect truma. Right? So the truma will now be in a state of suffix. You can't burn it. You can't eat it, but you can't burn it. But if they had both together, red and white, nevertheless, ein chayavan al bias mikdash, not liable for mikdash, but they're considered tamid regarding other matters. Why are they exempt from mikdash? My time and why? Let's assume because of that pasuk of Rav, and this is a right to Rav's opinion. My time we learn confirmed zachar, confirmed nekeva, zachar vada nekeva vadois. V'lo yanat etum madrignos. Amar ula no. Look, this brisa perhaps is reflective of a shita, a unique shita called Rabbi Eliezer shita, who requires specificity in all matters of entering the mikdash b'tumah, and likewise, by extension, he requires this element of specificity as well. But the Chacham, the other opinion, the consensus opinion, which does not have that precondition of specificity regarding the other element of specificity coming up in a minute, likewise, will not have this requirement of a confirmed zachar and confirmed nekeva. Lo yamani Rabbi Eliezer, this not. What do we find Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Eliezer hasheretz v'nela mimenu. Pasuk says he was involved with touching hasheretz, slipped his mind, he entered the mikdash, then becomes aware he has to bring a carbon. Says Rabbi Eliezer, the fact that v'nela mimenu is laid out near the reference to the source of tumah, to the cause of tumah, to the sheretz, tells us al halim sheretz ruchai. It's only chayv if he forgot that he touched the sheretz. So he forgot that he was tummy, entered the mikdash, then he realizes. But let's say he knows that he's tummy, but he's not realizing this is a Beis HaMikdash. That was his element of unawareness. Ve'enei chayv is not liable for that. Al halim mikdash. Rabbi Akiva Omer seems to say the same thing. We'll see in a minute what the difference will be. Likewise, v'nel mimenu v'tamei. So we slipped his mind that he's tummy. So the slippage of mind relates to his tumah. Al halim tumah chayv, only chayv for forgetting the fact that he's tummy. Ve'enei chayv al halim mikdash. But let's say he's aware about his tumah, but he doesn't realize this is a mikdash. There's no chiyuv for that. He seems to be saying the same thing. But the question was posed. Might be a difference between the two opinions here, but Marchizkiya, there's a slight difference. Suppose he knows that he is tummy. Why? Because he knows he touched one or the other, either a sheretz or nevel. He's not sure about that, but he knows that he's tummy. And then he forgot that he was tummy at all, entered the mikdash, became aware, should he bring a carbon? Rabbi Eliezer says, "Hasheretz v'nela." The initial awareness had to be very specific. He had to know exactly why he was tummy, and then slipped his mind, etc. Rabbi Akiva, no. This element of specificity is not required. As long as he realized that he became tummy, and then he forgot that he's tummy, entered the mikdash, etc., he's still chayiv. So we find that Rabbi Eliezer requires very defined, very specific process, very specific knowledge, very specific awareness. And likewise, by extension, when it comes to the tumtum, if he's lacking that specificity, he'll be exempt. When it's a question of whether I touch sheretz or nevel, that will be the difference here. Rabbi Eliezer Savar, he says, not enough to have a vague general idea of tumah, unless you have that specificity. Be'inan ad yoda, he has to have that precise awareness. Ibn sheretz, itami, was it a sheretz that made him tummy? Ibn aveli tummy. Rabbi Akiva Savar, no, that's not needed. We don't need that element of specificity. And therefore, says the Gemara, Lav Amar Rabbi Eliezer Hasan, just as Rabbi Eliezer tells us over there, specificity is required. Being on the other, he has to have that specific knowledge. Here as well by the tumtum. But in the other, he has to have an absolute confirmation. What's my issue? Am I a man and loivin made me tummy? Am I a woman and oidim made me tummy? And the absence of that awareness, he will not be liable for bias mikdash. But in the other, he be loivin tummy, he be oivin tummy. But according to the other view, Aval Rakiva, the Amar says Mishum Tumah Mechai, just general knowledge that he became tummy would suffice. Hachanami here as well, but he tumta Mishum Tumah Mechai, as long as he knows he's tummy. Mimanav Shach he's tummy. That's sufficient to hold him accountable. Okay, so again, Rav teaches a tumtum or an adreganus who had loivin and oidim simultaneously. He knows that either way he's tummy. It's not enough for liability for bias mikdash, which requires specificity. We thought we had arrived from the Brisa. We're not sure, perhaps that's Rabbi Lezer, but according to Rekiva and the other Shita is that wouldn't be required, but in any case, Rab does maintain that position. And we learned that it's based on the pasuk. It says, Ma'adam mizachar vad nekeva teshalechu, needs to be confirmation as to the cause of the tumah. Am I a zachar? Am I a nekeva? Ask the Gemara, why is this limited to exempting from Bias Mikdash? But regarding other matters, we give him status of Tumah. He touches Truma, he's certainly Metami the Truma, and the question is why? V'rav. Ma'ishna Bias Mikdash Deloy. Why is he exempt from Bias Mikdash? Because of the pasuk. Mizachar nekeva teshalechu, it has to be gender specific. Zachar, Vadai, nekeva Vadais. V'loy, and not a Tum Tumadrignas. Yachi, if that's the case, Truma Nami Lo Yisreit. We shouldn't consider Tummy at all, even with respect to affecting Truma. Truma Nami Lo Yisreit. The pasuk there as well speaks about genders. Vazav Zoivoy, Zachar nekeva. The pasuk speaks about all types of personal tummas, zav, etc. Let's learn. It needs to be a confirmed zachar vadai or nekeva vadai, and not a mixed gender. Answers the Gemara, no, that pasuk is needed for something else, unavailable to exempt a tumtum. The word zachar over there by the zav is l'rab is coming to teach you a totally different thing. We know that the liquids generated by a zav or a zava have a very high status of tumah. It's avatuma, like a saliva, etc. It's called mayonnaise, it's well springs, it's self-generated liquids. And we need to apply that idea to a mitzvah as well, or a mitzvah, a woman mitzvah. That there too, the liquid, the mayonnaise, the wellspring have status of avatuma. And that's what we learn from this pasuk. The word lazachar, l'rab is a mitzvah, to include mitzvah, and to be mitame his saliva, etc. Mayonnaise, the word l'nekeva, l'rab is to include as a mitzvah, a woman mitzvah, regarding the tumah status of our liquids, but it's not relating to a specificity and confirmation of gender. Ask the Gemara, okay, so you're telling me that pasuk is unavailable to exempt a tumtum? Well, let's go back to our pasuk by shiluach, tmeim from the Mikdash. It says zachar nekeva, fine, but mizachar v'ad nekeva, fine, but we need it for a different lesson as well. It's unavailable to exempt a tumtum. Hai namim boile is coming to teach us not only is a person who's tummy not allowed to be in the Mikdash, but even a utensil, a kli, cannot be brought to the Mikdash when it's tummy, or if you find it inside, you have to quickly send it out. So this requirement of sending out something which a kli which is tummy only applies to a type of kli which has potential for being relieved of its tumah by immersing in a mikvah, such as a metal kli. You find it in the base of Mikdash, quickly take it out. Prat kli cher is opposed to an earthenware kli, which doesn't have that ability. Right? You can't be table in a mikvah, it doesn't have that option of tahara. So there you just break it in the base of Mikdash, you just break it on the spot, and that destroys the tumah. So the pasuk is for this purpose. It's very basic. And it's unavailable to exempt the tumtum from shiluach Mikdash. Well, says the one can, if it's only to teach us the idea of the kli, nichtav rachmana adam. The pasuk would say, send out an adam. And we would learn, just as an adam has the mikvah option, likewise a kli which has mikvah option is under the same rule. Says the Gemara, iksiv ikas rachmana adam. So why does it have to say mizachar vad nekeva instead of just simply adam? Well, no, perhaps you can argue ikas rachmana adam. If it would only say adam, I would say kleimat chislai. Only a human, a person who's tummy is an issue in the base of Mikdash, but a metal kli, even if there's the mikvah option, but it's a kli, it's not an adam. Loi, there's no issue. You can't say that. Mikol tummy lenefesh nafka. Pasuk says any tummy, not just a person, even a kli. Okay, so now back to the point that mizachar nekeva is extra. Zachar nekeva lamad. What's that for? Look at the Rav. Teacher's Rav's point. It needs to be gender specific. Ask the Gemara. So now let's go the other way. Perhaps it's only coming for this point, and not coming to include that other formula, that mikvah option requirement. Also, maybe it's completely coming for Rav. If that were the case, Zachar and Nekeva would say Zachar and Nekeva should be sent out, and we would exempt the tumtum, whose gender is unknown. My mizachar ve'ad, the extra ve'ad Nekeva, what's that for? And is coming to tell you kol davar sheish lo taber mikvah, only an item which has mikvah option. Ask the Gemara, if you're exempting a tumtum or an androgynous because they're not gender defined. So just as we're exempting them from personal tumas, why stop there? Let's say a tumtum touched a mace. It should be allowed in the Beis HaMikdash because he's not gender specific. If that's the case, ki tami b'shar tumas lo l'shalchu. He became tummy through other tumas. You don't have to send them away. Amakra, the pasuk says no. Mi zachar. We're speaking about gender-related, personally generated tumas, emission tumas. Mi zachar mituma person zachar. In that realm, we exempt the non-gender specific individuals. Okay, so bottom line, we have a real zachar who had loiven, asur in the English. A nekeva who had dam, asur in the English. A tumtum who had one experience or the other, he's a safek tumah. So he touches truma, you can't burn it, you can't eat it. And the chiddush is, even if he has both together, in which case he knows either way he's tummy. According to Rav, and we learned the same with Rebbe Lezer perhaps, it's not gender specific, he's not confirmed as having experienced a zachar emission which made him tummy, or he's not sure which way. What was the trigger point of his tumah? So he's exempted from the pasuk mizachar bad nekeva. And this is limited to personally generated tumahs. But if he touches a maid, of course he's not allowed to be Bikdash. Whatever he is, zachar or nekeva or none of the above or both. Ask the Gemara. Is that so that whenever we have a reference to zachar and nekeva in the pasuk, it exempts these undefined entities? Let's take a look at erchen, which entails a fellow who pledged the value of an individual, and the Torah sets down, a fixed fee structure, depending on gender, depending on age. It says hazachar there. Tanya in the Brisa says, the word hazachar, the extra hey, not the word zachar per se, but the extra hey, exempts all these fellows. So the male fee does not apply to them. What about the female fee, which is a bit lower? Perhaps she's not covered by erachish. She has the isha fixed fee. Talmud leimar hazachar v'im nekeva. The word v'im exempts him. We learn that it has to be defined. His gender has to be known and confirmed. Zachar vaday nekeva vadayis. But it's only because of the extra hey hazachar. It's only because of the extra v'im nekeva. Time of the chesiv. It's only because it says hazachar and v'im nekeva. But otherwise, just merely the reference to zachar and nekeva per se wouldn't automatically disqualify the tumtum madriganus, unlike Rav who says it does. But mizachar and nekeva, just merely those references, you wouldn't exempt him. Why not? Answers the Gemara, because in this case, it has to spell out zachar and nekeva. It's not extra to exempt anything, if not for the extra hey and the extra v'im. Why? Because we have separate and distinct fee structures. Bein erech ish, to separate, distinct between the erech ish, l'erech isha. So without the extra letters and words, you wouldn't have any source to exempt anything, because it has to stipulate the fee structure of the ish, distinguish it from this fee structure of the isha. It's only the extra hey and the v'im which exempts the tumtum nadrig, as opposed to the halacha of Rav, who was speaking about sending tmeim out of the Midrash. It was unnecessary to even make mention of zachar and nekeva, if not to exempt a tumtum madrigas. Okay, all the best to you and atzlach.